Thanks, Lisa. Well, let's get more on that story about the koala crisis plaguing the New South Wales coalition. The leader of the Nationals in the Federal Senate, Bridget McKenzie, joins us now. Good morning, Senator. What's John Barilaro playing at?
Well, as I read it, the New South Wales Nationals are doing exactly what they were sent to Macquarie Street to do, and that's to stand up for their constituents. I mean, I don't think it's surprising that city-centric policy decisions being made in the main by the Liberal and the Labor Party are being challenged by the Nationals, whether it's in Macquarie Street, whether it's here in Canberra, whether it's in Spring Street in my home state of Victoria.
I mean, just to be clear, though,
it's
Senator,
actually not about koalas, Maddie. It's actually not about koalas. My understanding of this policy decision is that in November, a piece of legislation and changes were put to the government that were going to actually severely restrict farmers' right to develop their properties and indeed have severe impacts on the values of their properties and what they could actually do on that going forward. And so my understanding is the New South Wales Nationals have been working within the government to address those challenges, which is their job, and that it's been rebuffed.
Well,
now,
there's a couple of things that you bring up there. I mean, it is, as you say, it is actually their job to negotiate on these, and if they've negotiated and failed to arrive at what they were supposed to arrive at, you say, for their constituents, doesn't that show some kind of failure on the leadership of John Barilaro? And then instead of succeeding at a negotiating table, he's doubled down, gone publicly, didn't tell the Premier he was going to do this before he actually did it, and pushed the nuclear button.
Well, I think it's important to get a positive outcome for the constituents in rural and regional New South Wales. And I'm confident, having not spoken to the Deputy Premier, I'm confident that that is what his whole team is trying to achieve. Now, the fact that they haven't been able to arrive at a negotiated outcome says more about, I would suggest, Liberal ministers' inability to see the needs and interests of regional New South Welsh men and women as important to something their government can do. I think you can protect the habitat of koalas and ensure that that iconic species who's had a tough summer in New South Wales after the bushfire can have habitat protection without destroying the productive capacity and value of farmers' properties in New South Wales. You can walk and chew gum at the time, but not if you are going to have a city-centric operation towards policy development, that's what it looks like from my end.
How can people who live in New South Wales have confidence at the moment in the government in the middle of a pandemic if the junior partner in that government is deliberately destabilising the government? Well,
I don't see it like that, Maddie, at all. I see it as a level of frustration by the Deputy Premier and his parliamentary colleagues having tried to reach an appropriate outcome inside the tent. They obviously feel that this is their only course of action. I hope the Premier and the Deputy Premier can actually work this out. Australia is best served when the Liberal and the National Party are presenting a stable and successful coalition government. But at the end of the day, these are two very separate, independent parties with separate constituencies and values, and sometimes that requires having to have very tough conversations. So I hope they can find a compromise that doesn't mean regional New South Wales and rural farmers, who have also had a very tough period, I might add, with drought and bushfires, aren't paying the cost to satisfy Green votes in Sydney.
OK. Can I just bring you to your home state of Victoria? The Premier there has said that there are hopes that he might be able to ease some of the restrictions on regional Victoria because of the low COVID caseload there. You've been campaigning on that, so you'll welcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been campaigning for months that isolated outbreaks of COVID-19 should be treated swiftly and securely in isolation. We're hoping that National Cabinet can come together and actually get that hotspot definition agreed to so that COVID-free regions like border communities in my home state of Victoria, or even the ACT here in Canberra that's been COVID-free for 60 days, can actually travel freely within our nation. It's just the human toll is mounting, and we're seeing some really tragic outcomes for individuals, for businesses and the like. We've got to get this right and show leadership.
Okay, can I just ask you one more question about your former portfolio? And the Auditor General's office told a Senate committee an advisor in your office drafted talking points making the pitch for more money to be included in the community sports infrastructure program to target more seats. Did you ever see that document, and doesn't that document's existence prove that it was politically motivated?
I've made a 6,000-word submission to the Senate inquiry. I stand by every single word in that submission, and I've got nothing more to add to that.
Okay.
But it was a great program, Maddie, and there's 640-odd community clubs enjoying infrastructure right now and getting people active out in our communities as a result.
Okay, Senator Bridget McKenzie, thank you.